The story is set in Texas during the 1940s, a time when racial tensions between black and white communities were at their peak. Black people faced immense discrimination and had very limited rights. They were often unable to freely speak to one another, conduct their own business, or own property. Many were forced to work for white people, and losing their homes was a constant threat. Amidst this harsh reality, a young boy named Bernard emerges with a dream of breaking these barriers. Bernard, from a humble black family, spent his days shining shoes in front of a bank, not because he needed the money, but because he had big dreams. Bernard wanted to become a banker, and even aspired to open his own bank someday. Despite facing systemic racism that prevented him from attending prestigious colleges, Bernard was determined to learn as much as he could. As he polished the shoes of white bank customers, Bernard worked slowly, hoping to extend the time they spent with him. He attentively listened to their conversations about banking and carefully noted down everything he learned in a diary. He even eavesdropped on the bank manager's discussions, gathering valuable knowledge about the industry. However, one day Bernard was caught in the act. His father, seeing the risks his son was taking, tried to dissuade him, warning that his lofty dreams might shatter under the weight of reality. But Bernard was resolute. He would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. The story then shifts 15 years into the future. Bernard is now a grown man with a wife and son, and the family has moved to Los Angeles seeking a fresh start. In Los Angeles, racial discrimination, while still present, was not as severe as in Texas. Bernard saw this as an opportunity to finally pursue his dream of starting a business. The family initially stayed with relatives, but Bernard promised his wife that they would soon have their own home. Driven by this ambition, he began exploring Los Angeles, scouting properties for potential investment. What Bernard noticed was striking. Black communities were overcrowded, with multiple families crammed into single houses. Meanwhile, many homes in white neighborhoods stood vacant. This observation sparked a business idea. Bernard realized he could buy properties in white neighborhoods and sell them to black families who desperately needed housing. While exploring, he came across a building filled with multiple apartments, an opportunity that could change his and others' lives forever. Thus begins Bernard's journey of challenging societal norms and striving for his dreams, despite the obstacles in his path. The building Bernard had found was in terrible condition, as it had been abandoned for a long time. Determined to make it his first big investment, Bernard approached the building's owner. He told the man, "Your property is in such bad shape, you're not getting any benefit from it. Why not sell it to me?" Bernard offered $35,000 for the building, explaining he could pay $30,000 up front in cash and the remaining $5,000 once all the apartments were rented out. While Bernard's proposal was clever, the owner was hesitant about taking on what he perceived as a risky deal. During their conversation, Bernard noticed a calendar in the room, a gift from the bank manager, which gave him an idea. Politely ending the conversation, Bernard decided to approach the bank manager directly. However, when Bernard arrived at the bank, the manager's secretary, who clearly held racial prejudices, refused to set up a meeting for him. Undeterred, Bernard stood outside the bank for hours, waiting for the manager to leave. As soon as he saw him, Bernard seized the opportunity. He stopped the manager and confidently pitched his idea. "I know your potential customers, and I want to do business with them. If you grant me a loan, your customers will benefit, and so will you." But the manager didn't even consider the proposal and flatly refused. That night, Bernard received an unexpected phone call from the very building owner he had spoken to earlier. Thinking he was about to be reprimanded for contacting the bank, Bernard was prepared to apologize. But to his surprise, the man wasn't upset. Instead, he praised Bernard for his persistence and determination. The man said, "I admire that even after facing rejection, you didn't give up. You kept trying to achieve your goal." Then, he delivered life-changing news. "I'm willing to be the guarantor for your loan." Bernard was overjoyed. For the first time in his life, he secured a bank loan. With this funding, he invested in his real estate business and purchased the building. After buying it, Bernard began renovating the property with the help of a colleague. One day, an elderly white woman approached them, visibly annoyed. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. Bernard calmly replied, "I'm working here." With a condescending tone, the woman retorted, "Well, be careful. Don't ruin anything." Smiling, Bernard responded, "Don't worry, ma'am. This is my building, and I'll take good care of it." Stunned, the woman quickly left. But shortly after, the police arrived at the scene. The police arrived and told Bernard they had been called by the old lady, who claimed Bernard was falsely asserting ownership of the building. She insisted it was impossible for a black man to own property in a predominantly white community. However, Bernard was prepared for this. business. Calmly, he produced all the legal documents proving his ownership of the property. After reviewing the paperwork, the police acknowledged that Bernard was indeed the rightful owner and left the scene without issue. A few days later, as Bernard returned to the building carrying a lamp, the old lady approached him again. She demanded to know, "What time is this? What time are you doing this renovation?" Bernard, maintaining his composure, replied softly, "I'm not a renovation worker. I'm the owner of this building." Stunned by his response, the old lady began to see Bernard in a new light. In the days that followed, however, she decided to move out of the building, unwilling to live in the same space with a black man. Upon leaving, she rented her apartment to a non-black tenant. Bernard, as always, kept his focus on his goals. He knew the demand for housing in the black community of Los Angeles was immense. Soon, all the apartments in his building were rented out, providing him with a steady stream of income. Bernard used this income to settle his pending payment to the building's previous owner and fully repay the bank loan. The previous owner, impressed by Bernard's dedication and business acumen, offered him a partnership. Seeing it as a golden opportunity, Bernard agreed. With the owner's investment, they purchased another building. After renovations, they quickly rented out all the units, just as they had done before. In the real estate market, Bernard's business partner, a white man, was the public face of their dealings, which helped them avoid racial discrimination in their transactions. Together, they shared profits equally, and Bernard's hard work paid off handsomely. With this success, Bernard achieved one of his dreams, purchasing a luxurious mansion for his family. He moved in with his wife and son, finally giving them the life he had long promised. But life is rarely free of challenges. A few years later, Bernard's business partner passed away unexpectedly. According to his will, all his shares in their company went to his wife, who harbored the same racial prejudices as many others in their community. Unwilling to work with Bernard, she presented him with a harsh ultimatum: "Sell your shares to me at a low price, or I'll sue you." This threat placed Bernard in a difficult position, jeopardizing everything he had worked so hard to build. Bernard was fully aware of the deep-seated racial discrimination in the community, and he knew that even in court, the judge would likely side with the widow simply because she was white. Despite this harsh reality, Bernard was determined not to back down. Refusing to sell his shares, he prepared himself for the possibility of a legal battle. To win the case, Bernard needed someone who could vouch for the business deal between him and his late partner. He remembered the bank manager who had approved his loan and immediately went to meet him. However, upon arrival, he discovered that the widow had already met with the manager, further complicating his situation. Feeling dejected, Bernard stood in front of the building, reflecting on the humiliation and discrimination black people face daily. He noticed that the building housed 4 banks, all of which had treated him and others from his community with contempt. Then, an audacious idea struck him. What if he bought the entire building? Owning the building would mean the banks inside would have to pay him rent. It would be a form of poetic justice, turning the tables on the very institutions that had humiliated him. But Bernard faced a major obstacle. He didn't have enough money to make such a significant investment. Determined to make his vision a reality, Bernard sought out a prominent businessman in the Los Angeles real estate market who, like him, was from the black community. Bernard pitched his bold business idea, proposing that they buy the building together. At first, the businessman Joy was skeptical. The property was extremely expensive, and no black person had ever purchased such prime real estate in Los Angeles. Joy initially thought Bernard was being overly ambitious, even reckless, but Bernard calmly presented detailed calculations, explaining how the investment could yield substantial profits. He laid out a clear plan, showing how owning the bank's building would not only generate rental income, but also give them leverage over the financial institutions. Bernard explained, "If we own the building, the banks will have to work for us. This will make it easier for us to secure future investments, and our real estate business will thrive." Impressed by Bernard's sharp mind and innovative thinking, he told, "I have a lot of money, but I've never thought of an idea like this. Despite all my wealth, I've always worked for white people, but now I want to work with you." But one challenge remained. To successfully manage the property and interact with the white business community, they needed a white partner who could act as their intermediary. Bernard realized that having such an ally was crucial to making his revolutionary plan succeed. Bernard confidently reassured Joy, saying, "Don't worry, I already already have someone in mind. This person, referred to as Mast, was a key part of Bernard's plan. Mast was white, trustworthy, and hardworking, but he needed to be trained for the role Bernard envisioned for him. Bernard and Joy took it upon themselves to prepare Mast for the high-stakes world of real estate. They taught him everything he needed to know, how to present himself among high-class individuals, proper etiquette, and even how to play golf, a crucial skill for networking with the elite. They also trained him in the intricacies of real estate, including detailed calculations for buying and selling properties, evaluating market value, and negotiation tactics. Mast proved to be a quick learner. Following their plan, Mast began frequenting the golf club, a key location for networking with wealthy business people. There he managed to impress the owner of the bank building they were targeting. Joy had meticulously arranged this meeting, and Mast executed his role perfectly, leaving the building owner impressed and open to a deal. Despite his initial success, Mast started to feel overwhelmed. Everything he had accomplished so far was part of Bernard's plan, and he feared he might falter when making decisions on his own. Bernard, ever the mentor, reassured him, "Don't worry, I'll guide you every step of the way." That night, Bernard meticulously prepared Mast for the next meeting. He analyzed the building's details, counting its lights and calculating the number of offices and available spaces. He broke down the property's share value and taught Mast how to explain these figures confidently and convincingly. Mast memorized the calculations, ready for any questions that might come up. The following day, Mast met with the building owner again, this time to finalize the deal. When discussing the building's valuation, Mast consistently stayed one step ahead of the owner's accountant, confidently presenting more accurate and favorable figures. This sharp understanding impressed the owner, who ultimately agreed to sell the building to Mast, Bernard, and Joy. Acquiring the building was a monumental achievement for Bernard and Joy, solidifying their presence in the real estate market. The transformation was stunning. Where Bernard had once faced relentless discrimination from the banks in the very same building, he now owned it. Bank presidents who once looked down on him now greeted him with respect, recognizing his influence. This victory not only elevated Bernard and Joy's real estate business, but also had a profound impact on the black community in Los Angeles. Their success significantly reduced racial discrimination in the city. Black individuals found it easier to buy homes, and business opportunities expanded for them. The once divided communities began to integrate, with black and white people living together in harmony. Bernard and Joy's remarkable achievements garnered widespread attention, and even the white city president joined them for photographs, signaling a significant shift in societal attitudes. Through their determination, vision, and hard work, Bernard and Joy not only built a thriving business, but also helped reshape the landscape of equality and opportunity in Los Angeles. After achieving incredible success in Los Angeles, Bernard decided to return to Texas to visit his parents. His father, once skeptical of his dreams, was now immensely proud of all Bernard had accomplished. Bernard took his son on a tour of the city, revisiting the bank where he used to sit and polish boots as a boy. To his surprise, he saw another young boy polishing boots in the same spot. But unlike Bernard's time, the boy was polishing the boots of white customers, reflecting how much respect and privilege white people still commanded in Texas. Witnessing this discrimination and humiliation of black people, even after so many years, deeply saddened Bernard. Determined to make a difference, he resolved to use his success to fight against racial inequality. With this goal in mind, Bernard approached his business partner, Joy, and proposed buying a bank building in Texas. At first, Joy thought Bernard was being reckless, but Bernard presented a well-researched plan demonstrating the potential profitability of the investment. Convinced, Joy agreed. As always, to navigate the racial barriers of doing business with white people, they relied on Mast. Mast met with the building's owners to negotiate the deal. However, the situation proved complicated as there were two owners, a senior owner who was agreeable to selling the property, and a junior owner who hesitated and seemed uncomfortable with the idea. Despite his reservations, the junior owner eventually went along with the sale. After acquiring the building, Bernard, Joy, and Mast took it a step further. They bought the bank housed within it. Their vision was clear: to make it easier for black people in Texas to secure loans to buy property, start businesses, and achieve financial independence, just like white people. At first, everything seemed to be going smoothly. Loans were issued to black customers, and many began to thrive under the new opportunities. But the junior owner soon started scrutinizing the bank's loan records. When he discovered that all the loans were being issued exclusively to black people, he was furious. The junior owner confronted Bernard and Joy, accusing them of bias and unethical practices. "What you've done is not right," he declared. "These loans are clearly discriminatory. You could be arrested for this." He warned them that the federal department would be conducting an audit of the bank in the coming month, and if they found anything amiss, Bernard and Joy could face jail. The threat left the trio deeply shaken. They were unsure how to navigate this crisis. Mast then came up with a bold plan. "We should buy another bank, I'll run it, and we can transfer all the questionable loans there." Though the idea wasn't perfect, it was the only solution they had in the moment. Reluctantly, Bernard and Joy agreed. They knew it was a temporary fix, but they hoped it would buy them enough time to come up with a more permanent resolution. Mast started managing his newly acquired bank, but problems quickly arose when his lawyer unknowingly approved numerous flawed loan documents. Mast struggled to keep the bank afloat, but the situation escalated when he learned that a federal inspection team was coming to investigate the bank. It was soon revealed that this inspection had been orchestrated by the junior owner of the original bank building, Asalme Jr., who had been plotting against Bernard, Joy, and Mast all along. Mast was terrified of the impending inspection. Bernard, dressed as a worker, attempted to calm Mast and gather information about the investigation. While listening to the inspection team, Bernard discovered that the lawyer had approved numerous loans without proper documentation or legal grounds, a mistake that led to the immediate suspension of the bank's license. Bernard confronted Mast, demanding to know how such a catastrophic error could happen. Mast then revealed that the lawyer who had approved the loans had been selected by Junior himself. It became clear that Junior had been manipulating them from the start, using Mast as a pawn in his scheme to ruin Bernard and Joy. Faced with the collapse of the bank, the group debated their next steps. Bernard suggested abandoning the bank and relocating elsewhere to rebuild. However, Mast refused to leave the bank behind, insisting on taking a stand. Against Bernard's advice, Mast decided to confront the situation head-on. When Mast returned to the bank to retrieve the documents, things took a dramatic turn. The FBI arrived on the scene, seizing the documents and arresting Bernard and Joy. The documents bore their names, implicating them in the fraudulent loans. Shortly afterward, Bernard and Joy were granted bail and met with their lawyer to discuss their options. Their lawyer warned them of the uphill battle they faced. This will not be an easy case to win. The judge is likely to side with the white community. Meanwhile, Mast was also arrested. Seeking a way out, he struck a deal with the judge, agreeing to testify against Bernard and Joy in exchange for his freedom. As Mast prepared to betray them, Bernard had his own meeting with the judge. The judge offered Bernard a deal. He could either incriminate Mast and walk free or testify in court and risk imprisonment. Bernard chose the latter, refusing to betray his principles. The next day in court, Bernard delivered a powerful statement. He spoke about the systemic struggles faced by the black community and their fight for dignity and equality. With unwavering conviction, he highlighted the obstacles they face simply to live a normal life, challenging the status quo and exposing the injustice of the system. Bernard's speech became a rallying cry for the black community, marking a turning point in their fight for equality, even as he braced himself for the consequences of his courage. Bernard concluded his heartfelt statement in court by proclaiming that the black community deserved their rights. His powerful words, however, came at a great personal cost. Bernard was sentenced to jail, sacrificing everything he had built for the sake of his community. The bank he had fought so hard to establish was seized by Junior and sold for millions. Meanwhile, Mast, due to his privilege as a white man, escaped any consequences for his role in the events. Years passed, and the day finally came when Bernard and Joy were released from prison. Bernard's wife arrived to pick him up, and to everyone's surprise, Bernard was full of joy, radiating happiness as though he had lost nothing in life. His demeanor puzzled his wife, but before she could ask, Joy revealed the truth. Joy explained that Bernard's apparent optimism was no facade. He truly hadn't lost everything. Curious, Bernard's wife asked him how he had managed to keep his property. Bernard recounted a pivotal moment. The night before his court appearance, Mast had called him. Overcome with guilt for betraying Bernard, Mast wanted to apologize. Instead of dwelling on the past, Bernard seized the moment and asked Mast for a favor. He requested that Mast sell all their property and reinvest the money elsewhere. Mast, determined to atone for his actions, followed Bernard's instructions to the letter. By the time Bernard and Joy were released, they already had a flourishing real estate empire waiting for them, one that Mast had managed in their absence and would continue to oversee moving forward. As Bernard reunited with his family, he knew his life was returning to normal, stronger than ever. His sacrifices had not been in vain, and his unwavering determination had paved the way for a brighter future. The story ends with Bernard's legacy of resilience and hope, a testament to his unyielding spirit and vision for equality.